Chapter 1. The Birth, Beneath the Marsh. Long before the age of men, before the gods carved order from chaos, there was a place where the veil between worlds was thinnest, a fetid bog called Lerna, nestled between shadowed hills and whispering waters. There, beneath its bubbling black depths, something ancient stirred. From the union of Echidna, the mother of monsters, and Typhon, the storm of the pit, was born a creature of unimaginable power, a beast, not of this world, nor the next. This was no mere serpent, no simple spawn of chaos. This was Hydra, the many-headed curse. Its breath turned trees to rot, its slime sickened rivers, and its gaze petrified flocks in fields. Lerna's waters turned black the day Hydra rose, and no mortal dared step near its marsh without vanishing forevermore. But why had it awakened? The answer lay in the sky above, where Zeus, Lord of Olympus, watched with wary eyes. Centuries ago, he had cast down Typhon and chained Echidna deep within Tartarus. Yet prophecy had warned him of a spawn too monstrous for gods or titans to command, a beast that would not obey Olympus, nor bow to Tartarus. The Hydra was that prophecy made flesh. Zeus summoned the Council of 12, gods and goddesses seated in golden judgment atop the divine mountain. The first to speak was Athena, her eyes hard with wisdom. "This creature is not like others, Father. Each head it loses, two more shall rise. Its mind is not one but many, a plague of soul and sinew." Apollo strummed his lyre, whispering of omens. He had seen cities drowned and temples buried beneath vines grown from the Hydra's blood. "It cannot be slain," he said, "only sealed." But Hera, ever cruel and cunning, raised a delicate brow. "Let the mortals suffer. Let them learn that even gods do not slay every storm." Zeus raged at her callousness, but no god dared challenge the law of fate. So it was that the Hydra remained unchecked. Far below Olympus, in the village of Nereus, nestled near the cursed marsh, the people had long forgotten their old gods. They prayed not for mercy, but for rain, for sun, and for a harvest that would not rot in the soil. They lived simple lives until the day of the 9 cries. It began with tremors. The marsh shook, then cracked. Gasps of noxious steam hissed skyward as the ground bubbled and boiled. Then came the roar, not one, but 9 screams, each head shrieking its own agony into the heavens. From the mire rose a body larger than temples, scaled in shades of black and sickly green. 9 heads thrashed upon sinuous necks, their fangs dripping with venom that melted boulders. A tongue of flame burst from the central maw, and a single strike from the beast's tail shattered a watchtower like dry reeds. The Hydra had awakened, and it remembered nothing but hunger. Villagers ran, screamed, prayed, but none survived. Not until the child. He lay in the mud, untouched, though bodies around him had been melted or crushed. In his hand, he clutched a piece of broken bone, not human, but serpentine. In his eyes glowed faint gold. They named him Theron, meaning hunter. Far away, the oracle of Delphira screamed in her sleep. She rose with blood in her mouth, her gaze unfocused as smoke curled from her lips. Before her acolytes, she spoke. "The marsh is broken. The serpent walks. The child of storm and ash shall rise. The one who walks with 9 shall choose to slay the gods or save the world." And then she fell, lifeless. Back in Olympus, the gods watched with growing unrest. Poseidon, god of the sea, grumbled. "It is your beast, Zeus, born of earth and storm. Why do you hesitate?" Zeus clenched his fist. "Because the Hydra is more than a beast, is a test." "Then who shall be tested?" Athena asked. "The mortals," Zeus replied. "Let us see if they can birth a hero." And so, they turned their eyes from the world. Years passed. The Hydra returned to its swamp, dormant, waiting. Not sleeping, but brooding. For the Hydra was more than flesh. Each of its heads held a fragment of consciousness's soul, cursed or captured, twisted by ancient sins. The first head dreamed of fire. The second, of drowning kings. The third, of betrayal and loss. The fourth, of Olympus burning. The fifth, of freedom. The sixth, of revenge. The seventh, of silence. The eighth, of death. The ninth, of Theron. Thus begins the tale. Of a serpent born beneath cursed waters. Of a child spared by fire and venom. Of gods who feared what they could not control. Chapter 2. The Oracle's Flame. The Temple of Delphira lay high in the crescent hills of the Southlands, hidden in veils of mist and guarded by silence. Here, amid fragrant olive groves and whispering winds, the flame of sight burned eternal, a gift from Prometheus, stolen from the heart of prophecy itself. But on the night the Hydra rose, that flame turned black. The temple acolytes gathered in fear as their high priestess, Aurelia, collapsed upon the marbled floor. Smoke poured from her mouth, her limbs twisted, and her voice, no longer her own, chanted a prophecy that echoed into the bones of the earth. When 9 heads rise from fetid earth, and gods turn blind to mortal birth, a child shall come from storm and ash, whose name shall burn, whose blade shall flash. Silence fell, and then the oracle screamed her final words. He who walks with Hydra's breath shall bear the choice, life or death. Aurelia died moments later, her body crumbling to cinders. Her ashes joined the blackening flame, and from its base arose a new Marcan ancient sigil, not seen since the time of the First War. A coiled serpent with 9 heads, encircling the sun. Far from Delphira, in a distant coastal province of Elythian, the boy named Theron trained under strange tutelage. Raised by the healer Nema, who had once served the old gods, Theron was no ordinary boy. His blood ran hot even in winter, and no fire ever burned him. At 7, he tamed a mountain lion with nothing but a whisper. By 10, he could run with wolves and speak to birds in their dreams. Nema watched him closely. She had found him years ago in the poisoned marsh, untouched by the Hydra's wrath. No mortal could have survived, but Theron bore no scars. Only one thing marked him, a birthmark upon his shoulder, shaped like a single serpent's head, its tongue forked and golden. One evening, Nema led him to a fire beneath the stars and spoke truths wrapped in shadow. You were born when the beast rose. Not by chance, not by mercy. You are of it, yet not it. You were chosen or cursed. Theron, now nearly 13, stared into the flames. Chosen for what? Nema closed her eyes. The oracle's flame has darkened. The world bends. The gods sleep with one eye open. The Hydra waits. Then I'll kill it, he said, voice quiet as steel. She turned to him sharply. To face the Hydra is to face 9 deaths. Each head is a soulsome ancient, some forgotten. Kill one, and 2 more grow. It is a riddle of death. Not a beast. Not truly. But Theron did not flinch. In the high mountains of the east, a rider in gold robes ascended the frozen slopes toward the cave of echoes. He bore the sign of Apollo and a scroll sealed in dragon wax. His mission, to confirm the oracle's death. The cave was silent as he entered until a voice whispered, "The boy lives. The Hydra dreams. The gods do nothing, so we must." The rider dropped to one knee, trembling. Then, "The prophecy is true." A second voice answered, deeper, older. "The boy must be watched, trained, not just in swordplay, but in truth. And if he fails, then the Hydra will not stop at it will ascend Olympus." Elsewhere, deep in a marble palace lit by stormfire, Zeus stood alone, staring into a pool of stars. Within its shimmering surface, he saw the future play out in broken flashes. A boy in silver armor, standing over a field of 9 severed heads. A tower falling as a sea serpent coils around it. A figure cloaked in shadows, speaking with the voice of the Hydra. Athena approached him quietly. "The mortal child grows." Zeus nodded. "He is the edge of the blade, but which way he swings, I cannot see. Should we intervene?" He clenched his jaw. "No. We forged a world of men. Let it be men who save Etor, destroy it." That night, in the woods beyond, Alethean Theron wandered alone. The moon shone high, casting silver upon the leaves. And then, suddenly, he felt it. A pull, a voice, something ancient calling from the trees. He followed. And there, by a ruined shrine, he saw it. A stone statue, cracked and moss-covered, of a serpent with 9 heads. At its base, the inscription read, "Beware the breath that steals your name. Beware the mouths that speak in flame. Beware the truth that sleeps in pain." As he reached out to touch it, a gust of wind knocked him back. And in that instant, Theron saw a vision. 9 faces, all different, staring at him through smoke and water. One was a woman with golden eyes and a tear-shaped scar. One was a boy no older than Theron, covered in chains. One wore a crown of bones. One was Theron himself. He gasped and fell to his knees. From the shadows, Nema arrived, breathless. "You've been marked." Theron looked up, his eyes glowing faintly gold. "It spoke to me," he said. "The Hydra, it remembers me." Far away, in the depths of the Lernian marsh, something ancient stirred. Within the thick slime and twisted roots, the Hydra shifted in its slumber. Each head dreamed, each soul inside twisted. And one of them whispered, "Soon." Chapter 3, The Drowned Kingdom. The kingdom of Myrmidon had once been a jewel of the south, its towers of marble and brass gleaming like stars upon the sea. Built on the edges of the Lernian marsh, it flourished in defiance of the curse whispered in ancient scrolls. Its kings claimed dominion over land and tide, and their arrogance grew with every passing age. But the marsh remembers, and it waits. King Valain III, last ruler of Myrmidon, was a man of pride and paranoia. His court was lined with oracles chained in gold, and his walls bore talismans of protection carved from the bones of sea serpents. Every year, he sent priests into the Lernian marsh to appease the gods with offerings of wine, gold, and sometimes blood. None ever returned. Still, the king believed himself safe, until the sky broke. It began with rain black and sour. For 7 days and nights, it poured from clouds that never moved, forming rivers of rot that devoured fields and drowned the harvest. Then, on the 8th night, the ground shuddered beneath the palace itself. The Hydra had awoken. It rose from the depths like a mountain, its 9 heads crowned in shadow and flame. The palace bells tolled in panic as the creature loomed over the capital. Its breath turned statues to sludge. Its roar shattered glass across the city. And then came the wave. The marsh, now a living ocean, surged forward and swallowed Myrmidon whole. In a matter of hours, towers sank, screams were silenced, and history ended. When the waters receded, days later, all that remained was a mirror-flat lake, still and black as obsidian. Some said they saw ghost lights dancing on its surface. Some claimed they heard faint voices calling from beneath. But only one survivor ever emerged from the drowned kingdom, a boy, no more than 4, pulled from the roots of a half-drowned tree. That boy was Theron. He never spoke of that day, not to Nema, not to the others who raised him, not even when the dreams began. But every night, without fail, he dreamed of water. Not ordinary water, barked heavy and filled with eyes. It called to him in whispers, and sometimes it screamed. Now 17, Theron stood at the edge of the same black lake. He had returned. Nema's words echoed in his mind. The past does not sleep, it waits. And when the marsh calls you back, you must go. Not as a boy, but as a blade. He stepped forward. The lake's surface remained still, but the air shimmered with unnatural heat. He knelt and touched the water. Visions struck him like lightning. He saw the palace fall again, but from above. He heard the king's final command, the priests screaming as the marsh consumed them. Then, a massive ember, an ancient tokened beneath the waves, and locked on him. It whispered, "You are mine." He snapped back to reality, gasping. The mark on his shoulder burned. That night, he did not sleep. He wandered the cliffs near the lake and found himself at the ruins of an old tower, one of the few structures that had survived the flood. Inside, he found carvings, symbols older than Myrmidon itself. One in particular caught his eye, a circle of heads, and in the center, a sword piercing a heart. And beneath it, in faded script, "The beast is not one, it is many. Each head bears a soul. Each soul bears a name, and one will know yours." He felt a presence behind him. Turning, he saw a man cloaked in gray, his face hidden beneath a hood of feathers. "You seek what you do not understand," the man said, his voice like cracked stone. "Who are you?" Theron asked, stepping back. "A memory," the man said. "One of 9. Theron's hand went to his dagger. "You're one of them." "No," the figure said. "I was. Once. But the Hydra is not what you think. It is a prison for us all." He stepped forward and pulled back his hood, revealing a face without eyes. "I was Kalos, High Seer of I warned the king. He silenced me. When I died in the flood, my soul was chained to one of the heads. My voice, lost in the screaming." Theron stared at him, heart pounding. "Why are you here?" Kalos' form flickered like smoke. "To warn you. The Hydra is awakening fully. The gods have abandoned the marsh. But you are bound. To what?" "To choice," Kalos said. "Each head you slay, you free a soul, or doom it. One of them is yours." Before Theron could speak again, Kalos vanished. Back at the lake, the waters began to churn. The moon turned red above, and from beneath the surface, a single head of the Hydra rose in silence. It did not roar. It did not strike. It simply stared. Its tongue flicked once. Then it whispered, in Theron's voice, "Come home." In Olympus, thunder cracked as Zeus staggered. He clutched his throne as golden blood leaked from his ears. Hera rushed to him. "What is it?" He looked down from the clouds with horror. "The bond he whispered. It's awakening. The boy and the beast are no longer separate. Athena stepped forward. Then we have failed. No, Zeus said bitterly. We have begun. Chapter 4. Ash and Blood. The sun rose blood-red over the cliffs of Thalar Ridge, casting long shadows through the ash-dusted trees. This was a place forgotten by kings and feared by mortals, once a battlefield, now a graveyard, where swords still sang beneath the soil. It was here that Theron came in search of a name whispered in the flames of prophecy, Morcastus. The name meant little to the world now, but once he had been a god. A lesser one, perhaps, but mighty in war. Patron of duels and blades, Morcastus had stood with mortals during the first rebellion, when the Titans rose a second time, and for that crime, Zeus stripped him of divinity, casting him down in flame. They called him the Ash God, now cursed, to walk among the dying, buried in shame and soot. And yet it was he who held what Theron needed, knowledge of how to kill the Theron found the old god by the ruins of a shattered altar, hunched over a fire that gave no light. Morcastus looked like a man broken by war and time. His body was wrapped in a cloak of gray chain, and his face bore scars, not from swords, but from fire. One eye burned with ember-red light. The other was a hollow pit. He didn't look up when Theron approached. You reek of the marsh, the god rasped. And prophecy. I need your help, Theron said, to kill the Hydra. Morcastus spat into the dust. Do you now? Like all the others, he rose slowly, each movement like stone, grinding against bone. Why should I teach you, boy? Because I carry its mark, Theron said, pulling aside his tunic to reveal the serpent head birthmark. Because I was born in the flood. Because the oracle burned my name into flame. Morcastus froze. Then he laughed, low and bitter. So, you're the storm child. Zeus's gamble. The one who walks the line between man and monster. Theron stood firm. I need a weapon. And a way to end it. Morcastus stepped close, his breath like smoke. There is no weapon that can kill the Hydra. Not steel, not flame. It is not a beast, it is a knot of souls. You don't kill a knot. You unravel it. Then teach me to do that. The old god stared into Theron's eyes for a long time. Then he turned toward the cliffside. Follow me. They descended into the asphalt's a network of blackened tunnels once used to forge divine weapons. Long ago, Morcastus had led smiths and warriors into these chambers to craft blades laced with magic and fire. Now, all that remained were cinders and echoes. The Hydra was never meant to live, Morcastus said as they walked. It was created by Echidna and Typhonos, a trap. Each head they grafted held a lost spirit bound to serve. Some volunteered, most didn't. Theron frowned. What kind of spirits? The worst kind. Cursed souls. Betrayers. Murderers. Mad kings. Oracles who saw too much. Even a god or two. They reached a massive, circular chamber, its center dominated by a broken anvil. Around it lay fragments of weapons blades cracked in half, spears melted at the tip, and a single helmet fused to the stone. This is where we forged the Paroxys blade, Morcastus said. The only thing that ever wounded the Hydra. Theron stepped closer. Where is it now? Shattered, Morcastus said. During the fall of but its fragments remain. One is here. One lies in the belly of a leviathan. The last is in the Hydra's lair. He turned, eyes blazing. To kill the beast, you must remake the blade. And to wield it, you must understand what it costs. Theron narrowed his eyes. What cost? Blood, Arcestus said. Not just your enemies, yours. You must offer part of yourself to the blade memory, pain, or power. You must bind your will to it. Then I'll do it, Theron said. The god nodded. Then your training begins. But first, you must face the past. That night, Arcestus performed the rite of He built a circle of black stones and cut a wound across Theron's palm, dripping blood onto the forge's remains. The chamber darkened as flames flickered from the wound, and shadows danced across the walls. Speak the names of the dead who haunt you, Arcestus commanded. Theron hesitated. Then he whispered, my mother, my father, the people of me, the boy I couldn't save, the girl with golden eyes, the king who drowned. The air trembled. Flames erupted, and Theron fell into a vision, his own memories twisted by smoke and pain. He saw the flood again, the Hydra's heads snapping bones, the water rushing in. He saw his own reflection in the black lake, warped into a serpent's grin, and he heard a voice, not the Hydra's, his own. You think you can kill me? Fool! I am you. I always was. He awoke, hours later, gasping. Arcestus stood over him, arms crossed. You passed, the god said. Barely. Theron rose to his feet, blood drying on his chest. What now? Arcestus handed him a long, cloth-wrapped item. Inside was a blade fragment, black metal, with a glowing orange vein, still warm to the touch. This is the heart of Paraxis. Take it. The next piece lies beneath the sea of teeth, in the belly of the Leviathan. Go, and pray the monster sleeps. As Theron left the ash vaults at dawn, he looked back once. Will I see you again? Arcestus gave a grim smile. When you're ready to forge the blade, do or die trying. Then he vanished into the smoke. In Olympus, Athena felt a ripple across the weave of fate. She turned to the fate's loom, watching as threads twisted, one gold and one black, spiraling tighter. She whispered, the boy bleeds. The blade breathes. The war begins. And the Hydra, deep in its marsh, twitched in its sleep. One of its heads opened a yellow eye and whispered, soon, the blood will call us home. Chapter 5. The Beast Awakens. The stars fled the sky. Somewhere in the Lernian marsh, beneath a sky that had forgotten light, the Hydra stirred. The waters rippled, though no wind blew. Frogs went silent. Insects vanished. Trees bowed toward the muck as if paying tribute. Then, in the stillness of breath, not of air, but of soul, 9 of them, a pulse moved through the marsh like the toll of a funeral bell, and from the blackened depths, the Hydra began to rise. Slime slid from its massive form. Roots cracked, mud boiled, and the very ground wept with venom. The beast had awakened. Far from the marsh, Theron stood aboard a storm-battered ship on the Sea of Teeth, chasing the next piece of the Paraxis blade. Lightning cleaved the sky as he gripped the fragment Arcestus had given him, now wrapped tightly in seals of blood and cloth. His crew, mercenaries, outcasts, and oath-breakers, muttered dark prayers. They did not know why they sailed toward death. Only Theron knew. Only he heard the whispers in the wind. We are awake, said a voice within him. We remember you. You belong to us. He staggered and fell to one knee. The burn on his shoulder flared again, the serpent head mark glowing faintly. Nima's warnings returned in his mind. The closer you come to your path, the louder the beast will call. And it was screaming now. Back in Lerner, the Hydra's 9 heads rose in a spiral, their scales reflecting no light, as if they drank it instead. One breathed mist, another breathed fire. One wept tears of acid, while the others hissed in tongues unknown even to gods. They had not emerged together in over a century. Now they rose as one. Their minds, once fractured, were knitting together, bonded by Theron's awakening and the movement of prophecy. The seventh head, bearing a crown of bone, was the first to speak in thought. He gathers the blade. The third head, whose eyes were stitched shut, replied, "He carries pieces of us. He remembers things that never happened." The ninth head, the quiet one, whispered, "He is not ready." The others hissed and curled, writhing over one another in a dance of ancient rage. "Then we will make him ready," said the second head. "Let him feel what it means to awaken the old blood." Across the lands, signs erupted. In Valamir, rivers turned to sludge overnight. In Carthuan, priests screamed as statues bled. In the Temple of Wind, birds fell dead from the sky in spirals. And in Delphira, where the oracle's flame once burned, a black blossom bloomed from the ashes, unfurling petals shaped like fangs. The world was tilting, and the gods remained silent. On the ship, Theron's crew screamed as a serpent of water rose from the depths, a mimic, a message. It lashed its tail through the deck and roared with 9 voices in unison. Theron. He drew his blade, fragment by instinct, though it was no weapon yet. The creature lunged, but as it did, something deep within Theron awoke. His eyes flared gold, and the blade fragment burst into red flame, blocking the strike with a shockwave of force. The serpent shattered into salt water and wind, the ship bucking violently. The crew stared at him in awe and fear. "Did you see that?" One whispered. "The fire," it spoke. Theron didn't answer. He heard one word echo in his skull, as if burned into his very bones. "Soon." That night, Theron sat alone beneath the broken mast, the sea calmer now, but his heart in chaos. He unwrapped the fragment and stared into the pulsing vein of molten orange running through the black steel. It was no longer silent. It whispered to him, not words, but memories, not his own. Visions flashed, a forest of flame, a child crying in a cage, a war waged beneath a red moon. Then a familiar face, the eyeless seer, Kalos, one of the Hydra's imprisoned souls. "Find the others," Kalos whispered in the ember's glow. "You are not just the blade's wielder. You are its anchor." Suddenly, Theron understood. Each fragment of the Paraxis blade held not just power, but a piece of the Hydra's truth. To forge the full blade, he would have to walk through its history, bear its curse, and face every soul it imprisoned. The fire dimmed. He looked toward the sea, toward the Leviathan's trench. Tomorrow, he would descend into a creature older than the Hydra. But tonight, he dreamt of marshes, of fire, and of a voice calling him home. In Olympus, the gods finally stirred. Hermes raced into the hall of judgment, breathless. "He's done it," he said. "The boy has awakened part of the flame. The Paraxis calls." Athena turned to Zeus, fury in her voice. "We cannot stay silent now." Zeus rose slowly, thunder gathering in his palm. "We were warned. If we interfere before the Hydra fully awakens, the boy will never become what he must." Hera sneered. "What is that, exactly? A hero?" "No," Zeus said, "a god." And in the Lernian marsh, the 9 heads turned toward the rising sun for the first time in centuries. The 9th head, the quiet one, spoke alone now, as if to something no one else could hear. "Come, child of storm and ash. We are waiting." Chapter 6. Trial by Fire. The sea of teeth was calm, too calm. Theron stood at the edge of the deck, the final ropes of night unraveling in the east. Before him stretched an endless expanse of water, still as black glass. Beneath it, in the coldest trench, slept a monster older than kings, a creature not born, but forged. The Leviathan. If the legends were true, the second fragment of the Paraxis blade was buried in its belly. Swallowed during the War of Flame, when gods battled beasts and the sky bled for 7 days. Theron clutched the first fragment in his hand. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. Behind him, the crew murmured nervously, casting lots, whispering old prayers. They had heard the stories. None returned from the trench. Some begged Theron to turn back. He said nothing. His eyes were locked on the water, because he could feel it now. The Hydra. It wasn't close, not physically, but its presence, its consciousness, was brushing against his. Each time the blade fragment warmed, it wasn't fire, it was remembrance. The Hydra was remembering him, and worse, he was starting to remember it. Theron donned his dive harness, a crude but enchanted construct, gifted by Arcestus, silver-threaded leather, weighted with moonstone, enchanted to resist pressure and darkness. Nema had warned him of this place. You do not dive into the Leviathan's trench for treasure, Theron. You dive for truth. And truth in the deep does not forgive. With a final breath, he leaped. The water swallowed him whole. The descent was silent, but not still. Shapes passed in the dark, too large to name, too fast to follow. The further Theron dropped, the colder the water became, biting even through the charms stitched to his armor. Then the light vanished. Not faded, even the charm light tied to his wrist flickered and died. He was falling through blackness so pure it felt alive. And then, a flicker. Red. A massive glowing eye opened below him. Then another. And another. He had reached the Leviathan. The creature's body stretched like a countenance scaled in black and rust, with ridges taller than ships. Its heart beat slowly beneath the sea floor, each thump shaking the water around Theron like thunder. He landed on its hide, almost reverently. Then the blade fragment in his hand ignited. Red-orange light bathed the depths as the Paraxis shard responded to something beneath the scales. Theron followed the pull, tracing the Leviathan's spine toward a jagged ridge where a bone blade protruded from the flesh. A shard of Paraxis, half melted, fused into the beast's ribs. As he reached for it, the water twisted. Voices rose around him, not from the sea, but from within. The Hydra was watching. He heard 9 voices overlapping, discordant and echoing. Prove your will, face the fire. You cannot wield the blade unless you bleed for it. Suddenly, the fragment in his hand exploded with light, and Theron's vision was ripped away. He awoke in a different world, a dreamscape of burning fields and falling stars, where the sky bled ash and fire rained like tears. Theron stood in the middle of it all, barefoot, unarmed. A voice called out, "You wish to kill the Hydra, then face the Hydra within." From the flames rose a figure made of smoke and blood, Theron himself, but wrong. This other Theron's eyes were black, his skin cracked with red light, and around his neck coiled a serpent. "I am what you become if you fail," it said. The beast lunged. The fight was like no other. It was not about strength, but memory. The Dream Hydra wielded Theron's pain like a blade, shouting his guilt, throwing images of the drowning, the dying, the begging faces of Myridan's last moments. You let them die. You lived when better people perished. You were chosen not for strength, but because you are already broken. Theron fell to his knees, weeping. But then, he remembered Nema's voice, Arcestus's fire, the oracle's words, Each soul, bound to the Hydra, is chained in pain, but pain is not purpose. Pain is not power. Choice is. He stood. No, he whispered. I am not you. And he struck. With no sword, only will. The dream shattered. Theron woke, gasping, still underwater, clinging to the Paraxis shard, embedded in the Leviathan's ribs. The Leviathan opened its eye again. And for a moment, Theron saw recognition, not of him, but of the Hydra. He yanked the shard free. The trench shook. The Leviathan screamed not in rage, but Rilisand descended back into deeper dark. Theron was flung upward, carried by a current of molten heat and pressure that should have killed him. Instead, it reforged him. He emerged from the sea at dawn, half-dead, clutching 2 fragments of the blade. That night, as he stared into the campfire on the shore, Theron held both shards in hand. They pulsed in unison. And then, they spoke. Not in words, but imagize the next piece, hidden in the hollow of bones, beneath the ruins of a fallen giant. The final fragment. Far away, in the Lernian marsh, the Hydra reared its heads, and for the first time in centuries, it screamed in pain. The 9th head, still silent, watched the stars. He has passed the first trial, it whispered. He knows who he is not. Now we shall show him who he truly is. Chapter 7. The Helm of Silence. The Hollow of Bones was not marked on any map. Not anymore. Once, it had been the seat of Thuros, the Tall, a giant who walked in the time before men named years. He died in battle against the gods, his body falling across a valley that had never healed. Over centuries, winds stripped his flesh, time claimed his legend, and what remained was a bleached wasteland of colossal ribs, jagged like mountain spires. It was in this desolate place that Theron now walked alone. He had left the ship behind, dismissed the remaining crew, and traveled inland with nothing but his pack, his 2 fragments of the Paraxis blade, and a half-buried map, gifted in a vision by For days, he wandered through bone fog, where the wind sounded like whispers. He passed skulls, the size of towers, teeth like gravestones, and once, a ribcage large enough to house a village. Each night, he dreamt of the Hydra. Each night, it grew closer. On the 4th day, Theron arrived at the skull gate. 2 massive femurs crossed in an archway, bones bound by ancient rope and rusted iron. Beneath them, an altar of shattered stone awaited, carved with words nearly lost to time. Here lies the helm. The one who wears it shall hear the silence of beasts. The one who speaks while wearing it shall lose their name. He stepped forward, uncertain, the ground crunching beneath his boots. And then, the bones moved. A low growl rumbled through the hollow. From the shadows between the ribs rose a figure, half-man, half-spectre, draped in robes of tattered gray, a necklace of finger bones rattling against his chest. His eyes glowed faintly silver. His face was covered by a metal mask, smooth, without mouth or eye holes. A voice spoke, but not from him. It echoed all around. You seek the 3rd shard, but the shard is bound to the helm, and the helm tests all who wear it. Theron straightened. I've passed tests. I've faced the Leviathan. I've fought the Hydra's mind. The masked figure tilted his head. This test is not of strength, but of silence. A pedestal emerged from the earth, carved from the shattered vertebrae of the giant. Upon it rested the helm of silence, a smooth, obsidian black helmet, featureless and cold. Theron stepped forward. The masked guardian raised a hand. When you don the helm, you will enter the realm of echoes. There, you must find the shard. without speaking, without thought, without name. What happens if I fail? Then the Hydra will know all that you are. Theron took the helm. It was heavier than expected, cold to the touch, humming with strange vibrations. He lowered it over his head and the world vanished. The realm of echoes. He stood in a gray void. There was no sky, no ground, just sound. But not normal sound. Thoughts, memories, screams, whispers, laughter, the cries of dying kings, the roars of beasts, the moans of the damned. 1,000 lives overlapping, forming a wall of voices that pressed into his skull. Theron fell to his knees, clutching his head. Don't speak, don't think. Then a voice broke through the storm. If you are to walk among monsters, you must learn their silence. He breathed, focused. Let the storm wash over him. Then he walked through memories that weren't his. A woman clutching a burning child. A boy left alone in the dark, counting the seconds before death. A soldier stabbing his own brother. A god drowning in his own name. He passed them all without reaction, until he came to a mirror. It stood alone, tall and black, its frame made of coiling serpents. Inside, he saw himself, but not as he was. This Theron wore Hydra's heads as a crown. His eyes glowed green. His hands dripped venom. He opened his mouth, and Theron heard his own voice say, "You were never meant to slay us. You were made to replace us." Theron clenched his fists. Do not speak, do not deny, do not believe. The false Theron extended a hand. In his palm, the third fragment of the Paraxis blade. Theron reached out. As their hands touched, the void collapsed. Return. Theron awoke on the bone altar, gasping, helmet falling from his head. The masked guardian stood over him. You did not speak. You did not fall. You saw the temptation and turned away. He placed the third shard in Theron's palm. Its fire burned colder than the other's quiet. It pulsed in rhythm with his own heart. You now carry 3. The blade can be reforged. Theron stood where the guardian raised a hand and pointed north. To the marsh. To the Lernian forge. But beware, the Hydra has begun to wake in truth. Your silence has ended. Your war begins. As Theron left the hollow, the winds died. The sky darkened. And far away, in the Lernian marsh, the ground split open. From beneath the roots, a storm of venom and fire exploded. The Hydra fully awakened. Its 9 heads screamed in unison. Its minds now aligned. It remembered everything. And it spoke only one name, Theron. Chapter 8. Whispers of the 9. The marsh breathed. Fog hung like draped cloth over dead trees. Every surface glistened with dew that was not water, but venom. Birds no longer nested here. Even the wind passed in silence, as if terrified to speak. But deep beneath the stillness, the Hydra moved. 9 heads, each pulsing with consciousness. Each one a fragment of some ancient will. And now, for the first time in centuries, they were speaking to one another. First head Caldron, the mind reader. He walks toward us. The blade is nearly whole. 3 pieces burn in his blood. Second head, Lascara, the flame breather. He is too early. Let the storm devour him. Third head, Morvac, the eyeless seer. No, he comes as he must. The blade seeks truth before it seeks flame. Fourth, Hedvrexen, the maw that swallows light. Truth is for gods. We are beyond it. Fifth head, Ysera, the morning one. I remember him, or someone like him, when the gods first cast us into the marsh. Sixth head, Thernok, the ash. a trick of memory. We have devoured too many minds to recall which were real. Seventh head, Scylan, the masked judge. He bears the helm. He walked the echoes. He has heard silence. That makes him different. Eighth head, Olgros, the bone gnawer. Then let us test him, piece by piece. Mind, soul, flesh. Ninth head, Eleni, the quiet flame. She said nothing, but her eyes, the color of starlight on still water, closed gently like a mother waiting for a child's scream. At the edge of the marsh, Theron stood. His clothes were torn from the hollow's trials. His boots dripped with old blood. On his back, wrapped in linen, were 3 fragments of the Paraxis blade, each now humming with its own life. Nima stepped beside him, silent until now. Her voice, when it came, was softer than before. Once we cross this threshold, you stop being a man chasing a legend, and become the legend itself. Theron looked at her. Then I hope I hate legends less when this is over. They stepped into the marsh. For hours, days, maybe they walked through land that shifted when unobserved. Trees twisted when you blinked. Pools reflected not your face, but someone else's. Sounds came in threes, once from behind, once beside you, once from inside your own chest. Nima whispered chants under her breath, warding off illusions. Theron walked with his eyes half closed, focusing on the fragments, each glowing stronger as they drew closer to their origin. This place remembers everything, Nima warned. If you've sinned, it will show you. If you've lied, it will echo. And if you've loved, it will turn that love into a knife. That night, they camped on a circle of dry root between poisoned pools. Theron couldn't sleep. The stars were wrong here. They shifted slowly, like crawling beasts, leaving trails of venom behind them. And then, the whispers came. Not loud, not cruel, just present. Theron, he sat up. Theron, do you remember the fire? His heart pounded. He looked at the blade fragments. The third one, the shard of silence, was vibrating. And then, the dreams began again. He was 6 years old again, standing in the burning village. His mother's voice screamed his name. The sky rained blood. But this time, something new emerged. Behind the flames, 9 shapes, towering, writhing. The Hydra wasn't in the fire. It was the fire. We saved you, the voices said. You were not supposed to live. But we needed a key. He awoke, sweating. Nima had her blade drawn, eyes scanning the dark. They're watching us, she whispered. 9 minds, like eyes on my spine. They said I wasn't supposed to survive the fire, Theron replied. Nima lowered her sword. Then they lied, or worse, they're right. By morning, the marsh had changed. They reached a clearing of still black water, in the center of which rose a monolith of carved stone. Around it, 9 statues, each one shaped like a head of the Hydra. Theron stepped forward. As his boots touched the clearing's edge, the monolith pulsed and the fragments flew from his back, orbiting him in a spiral of red and black fire. The statues opened their eyes, one by one, and then they spoke. Not in speech, but in visions. Caldron showed him a life he never lived, ruling a city made of glass, where every thought was known. Liscara showed him as a tyrant, burning armies with a breath not his own. Morvac blinded him and showed him a world he could only feel, where truth was pain. Vrexen fed him stars and made him vomit black light. Ysera held his hand as she died in every life he'd never known. Tharnak made him eat ash until he forgot his name. Scylan judged him guilty of crimes he had yet to commit. Olgros laughed as he gnawed at his bones from within. and Eleni simply held him in silence, and whispered, "You are the Hydra." Theron fell to his knees. "No, I'm not, I'm me. You carry our souls. You awaken our mind. The blade you forge is not to kill us, it is to become us." Nema ran to him, pulling him from the circle. The visions broke. The fragments fell still. Theron's breathing slowed, and the 9th statue, Elena, cracked open. Inside, the 4th shard, pale, glowing with soft white flame. He took it in shaking hands. The ground trembled. The marsh split. The true Hydra, in flesh and horror, rose from beneath the roots. 9 heads, 9 wills, a single body, cloaked in night and venom. Nema turned to run, but Theron stood firm. He held the 4th shard to his chest, and the others flew to meet it, forming a cross of fire in the air. The blade was taking shape, and the Hydra smiled. "Come home, child." Chapter 9, The Pact of the Forgotten. The Hydra stood like a cathedral of flesh. 9 heads, each the size of a war elephant, arched above the shattered marsh. Its black scales shimmered with the colors of rot and flame. Each breath it exhaled painted the air with venom and memory. The marsh had become part of its roots, its rot, its silence. But Theron did not run. The 4 fragments of the Paraxis blade now floated before him, spinning in a slow spiral, humming with a rhythm not entirely his. His blood answered them. His bones ached in resonance. "You are the key," the voices of the Hydra murmured, one after the other. "You were never meant to slay us. You were meant to complete us." Nema stood behind him, her knuckles white around her dagger. "Theron, we need to leave. This is beyond us." "No," Theron said softly. "It's not beyond me. It is me." He stepped forward, and the Hydra did not strike. Instead, it lowered its central headline, the quiet flame, until her eye was level with his. "You carry what we were before the curse," she whispered. "But you are still incomplete. You need the 5th shard." "The heart, where is it?" Theron asked. With the forgotten, the marsh trembled again. This time, not in rage, but in invitation. The forgotten? Few had heard the name and lived. They were older than Olympus, older than even Typhon, the father of monsters. Once, they had walked the surface of the world as kings and queens of creation. But they had been sealed away by gods and titans alike. Not out of hatred, but out of fear. Theron followed the Hydra's guidance, deep beneath the roots of the earth. Nema came with him, though every step closer made her soul heavier. It was as if the very concept of time warped the deeper they went, like walking into a memory not their own. At last, they reached a chamber of stone and bone, where the air pulsed with heartbeat rhythms and walls oozed the sap of forgotten gods. In the center stood a circle of 13 thrones. All were empty, except 2. One was occupied by a woman with pale green skin, bark growing from her ribs, and silver tears streaming from hollow eyes. The last Dryad queen, thought long dead. The other was a massive being of stone and sinew, with one great eye, staring unblinking into space. A cyclops, covered in chains of divine origin. They turned their gazes toward Theron. "Immortal," the Dryad rasped. "No, not mortal anymore. You carry the scent of Hydra." "I need the 5th shard," Theron said. "The heart." The Cyclops laughed, a sound like thunder cracking through a tomb. "So you seek the pact," he said. "Then you must offer something." The pact of the forgotten was older than language. It was not forged with ink or blood, but memory. To receive power, one must surrender a part of their soul that could never be reclaimed. "The fifth shard lies in the hollow between names," said the Dryad Queen, "a place where the world forgets what you are, and forces you to remember what you are not." Nima stepped forward, defiant. "No. He's already been torn enough. We can find another way." But Theron nodded. "I'll go." The Cyclops reached forward and placed a massive finger on Theron's chest. The world snapped hand. Theron vanished. The hollow between names. There was no shape here. No up, no down, no past. Theron floated, not in water, not in air, but in absence. And then, visions returned. He saw himself as a farmer, quiet and content. Then, as a murderer, laughing with red hands. Then, as a god, crowned in light. Then, as a child, screaming in fire. Then, nothing. Each vision peeled a layer from him. Each tore a title, a belief, a memory, until finally, only silence remained. A single flame hovered before him. The fifth shard. It did not offer power. It offered truth. And Theron reached for it. When his fingers closed around the shard, it did not burn. It sang. He awoke in the chamber of the forgotten, breathing hard, sweat slicking his brow. Nima ran to him. "You were gone for days." "I was gone from myself," he whispered. In his hand, the fifth shard glowed. A warm, slow heartbeat of flame. The heart. The Dryad Queen stepped forward, touching Theron's chest. "Now you carry more than a blade. You carry a burden. The choice that broke gods and chained titans." The Cyclops nodded. "Return to the marsh. The Hydra awaits not as an enemy, but as what you were always meant to become." As they ascended, Theron no longer looked like a mortal. His eyes glowed with internal fire. His voice, when he spoke, carried echoes. "Nima," he said, "if I fall, if I become what I fear." "You won't," she said. "But if you do, I'll be the one to stop you." He smiled. For the first time in a long time, at the edge of the marsh, the Hydra waited. The other shards flew to meet the fifth, and the Paraxis blade finally forged itself, hovering in the air like a god-made weapon. 9 flames swirled around it. Each head of the Hydra bowed not in surrender, but in recognition. "Now," Eleni whispered, "you are ready." "Ready for what?" Theron asked. The Hydra's eyes turned toward the horizon, toward Olympus, toward the realm of the gods who created them and abandoned them, to make them remember. Chapter 10, Serpent's Shadow. The wind over the marsh howled like a warning. Clouds gathered in coiled shapes above the horizon, writhing like smoke serpents. Lightning forked across the sky, and somewhere beyond the veil of storm, Olympus stirred. The gods were watching again, and for the first time in an age, they were afraid. Theron stood at the edge of the marsh, the Paraxis blade now fully forged and humming with the weight of 9 burning souls. The Hydra circled him like shadows in water, its heads no longer snarling, but silent, expectant. "We are not your enemy," Eleni whispered, "but you must prove that to them. The gods won't believe words, only blood." Nima, now cloaked in marshborn armor of woven vine and ironroot, stood beside Theron. Her eyes had not left his face since his return from the hollow between names. "Are you still you?" she asked. He turned to her. His voice echoed slightly now, like a choir at the edge of a canyon. "I'm still Theron," he said, "but I remember more than myself." That night, he dreamed of Olympus. The thrones of the gods rose like mountain peaks in the void. Zeus sat at the center, wreathed in stormlight, but his crown had begun to crack. Around him, the Olympians whispered in dread. Athena's armor, was dented. Apollo's lyres strummed a tune of mourning. Artemis stared into the darkness, hand on her silver bow, and behind them, in the shadows cast by divine light, moved something old. Not a god, not a titan, not a beast, but the first serpent draken, Aesir, the forgotten one, the one whose bones seeded the Hydra's curse. Theron awoke, gasping. Eleni hovered nearby, her head lowered in a strange gesture of sorrow. "You saw it," she said. "The first," Theron whispered. "The serpent behind all of this. Yes, Aesir, the seed of what we are. The rot that birthed the Hydra." Nema frowned. "You never said the Hydra had a creator, because it is not one beast," Eleni said, her voice suddenly low. "It is a legacy. Aesir was the first, slain by Gaia herself and buried beneath Olympus, but its essence survived. Each time a god denied nature, cursed the marsh, burned a forest, it returned, and Theron asked. "The final sin," Eleni replied. "Your people tried to conquer what should not be owned. The Hydra was reborn, and when they tried to kill it, they fed it instead. But now, Aesir stirred, once more not beneath the marsh, but beneath Olympus. Its resurrection would mean not just the fall of a city or a kingdom, but the unraveling of memory itself." Theron clenched the Paraxis blade. "Then I won't let it rise." "You can't stop it alone," Eleni warned. "I won't be alone." In the days that followed, Theron and Nema prepared a march, but not an army of mortals. They summoned those the gods had forgotten. The Cyclops of the Shattered Forge, whose fire had been stolen by Hephaestus and left to die. The Dryad legions, once queens of ancient forests, burned to ash in Athena's warpath. The Lemia snake women, cursed by Hera for loving too deeply. And even the Draconi winged serpents, once chained in Tartarus. Each came not out of loyalty, but vengeance. Theron did not ask for oaths. He offered only truth. The gods have ruled. Now they must answer. Nema stood on a cliff, watching the legion assemble like storm clouds over the marsh. Her bow was strung with silver thread, now blessed by the forgotten. "Are we becoming what we hated?" she asked. Theron stood beside her, staring at the sky. "No. We're becoming what they feared." Lightning flashed. In its blaze, Theron's silhouette flickered in for a moment. 9 heads coiled behind him in the sky. Not a prophecy, a promise. In Olympus, the air trembled. Zeus stood, his hands clutching thunderbolts. Hera sharpened her gaze. Ares roared, his sword glowing with divine wrath. "The marsh child marches," Athena said, "and the Hydra walks with him. Then we meet him in war," Zeus declared. But deep beneath their golden halls, Aesir laughed its breath-breaking stone, its hunger rising. And it whispered, "Yes, let the storm begin." Chapter 11. War Beneath the Heavens. The skies over Greece had never looked so dark. A storm churned above Olympus, not one made by Zeus, but one beyond even his reach. It rolled in from the east, thick with black lightning and the scent of marsh decay. Beneath it, the land twisted, reshaped by ancient powers rising from their sleep. And from that storm came the march of the forgotten. Theron led them not as a king, not even as a general, but as something new. The Paraxis blade floated at his back, a vertical flame in the shape of a sword, now bound to him by blood and sacrifice. His eyes shimmered with multicolored fire. His voice, when he spoke, was not just his own, it carried echoes of Hydra heads, of marsh spirits, and of the dead. Nema walked beside him, silent and watchful. In her bow, she had strung one arrow made from the antler of a god-killed stag, and another dipped in Hydra's ichor. She said nothing, but her presence steadied Theron when the fire inside him surged, too hot. Around them moved a legion, unlike any Greece had seen. Cyclopes, with anvils bound to their backs, chanting the names of their fallen kin. Dryads wrapped in armor made of ancient bark and obsidian. Lamia, slithering across the battlefield with blades fused to their arms. The Hydra itself, its 9 heads moving in perfect, terrible rhythm. Each head had a name. Each head had a voice. Each voice had a grudge. At the gates of Olympus, the gods assembled. Zeus hovered above the mountain on a chariot of storm clouds, his beard wild with thunder. Athena wore full warplate, her owl helmet glinting. Ares rode a warhorse made of bronze and smoke. Apollo played his lyre, tuning his bow to match its pitch. Even Poseidon rose from the sea in a column of waves, his trident crackling. "What is this?" Hera snarled. "Rebellion, from mongrels and corpses." "No," Hades said softly, standing at the rear. "This is memory, coming to collect what we buried." But it was not the gods Theron feared most. It was what waited beneath them, Nisr, the serpent of origin. The first lie, the first curse, the first shadow cast by creation. As Theron's army approached, the ground beneath Olympus fractured. From deep below, a hiss rose like a tidal wave. The earth trembled, stone split, and from the cracks poured void light purple-black and seething with stars. It was not fire, it was unmaking, and from it, a shape began to rise. Isur was not just a serpent. It was the concept of hunger made real. Its body stretched between planes, coiled through memory, death, and time. Its scales shimmered with images every soul it had devoured. Its eyes were not eyes at all, but wells of forgetting. Theron fell to one knee, clutching the Paraxis blade. "It's here," he said. "The true Hydra, the seed of it all." The Hydra, at his side, screamed, all 9 heads together, cry of pain, rage, and fear. Nema turned to him. "If that's the source, what happens if we destroy it?" "I don't know," Theron said, "but if we don't, there won't be anything left to ask." The battle began with a single arrow. Nema loosed it straight at Apollo. He caught it with a smirk hand, then gasped as his lyre cracked in his hand. The string she had strung it with had once bound a forgotten muse, stolen by him in the age of song. He fell from the sky, screaming. Then the Hydra charged. Each head took a different god. Eleni the quiet flame clashed with Ethno-wisdom against elemental fire. Morthal, the hungering locked jaws with Ares, cracking his armor. Silahes, the dreaming maw, sprayed venom across Artemis' silver wolves. Theron leaped into the heart of Olympus. He did not strike at gods. He struck at the mountain itself. The Paraxis blade carved through marble, myth, and time. It opened a rift, one that led straight down into the womb of Isur. The thing hissed, and its attention turned fully to Theron. Inside the rift, Theron fell for what felt like hours. Images rushed past him, memories that were not his. A god-birthing war. A serpent whispering into clay. A forest burning over and over. A child with 9 shadows behind him. Then, darkness. And the voice. "You are what I left behind," Isur said. "You are my echo." "No," Theron answered. "I am your end." He raised the Paraxis blade, but Isur did not flinch. "Strike me," it hissed. "And strike yourself. We are bound. Hydra is not your weapon. It is your origin." "I know," Theron whispered. "But I've walked into memory. I've returned from forgetting. I carry all of us. and I choose to break the cycle." He stabbed the blade into the void, and Olympus screamed. Outside, the gods collapsed to their knees. The Hydra roared and coiled around the mountaintop. The rift exploded upward in a storm of light and ash, and from it rose Theron, half shadow, half fire, fully himself. Aesir writhed below, bleeding memory and myth. "This isn't victory," Theron said to the gods. "It's warning." Then he turned his back on Olympus, and the gods, for the first time in an age, let him leave. Chapter 12. Ashes of Olympus. The mountaintop burned. The ivory pillars of Olympus, once untouched by time, chaos, or war, were now cracked and blackened, sinking into the earth like bones returning to the soil. The gods stood silent, surrounded by ruin. No lightning, no hymns, no triumph, only ashes. Theron descended from the sky like a falling star. The Paraxis blade flickered behind him, dim now, its fire spent on striking at the heart of Aesir. His face was pale, skin marked with strange sigils, some glowing faintly, others burned raw. Nema caught him as he stumbled. "You did it," she said. "You wounded the serpent." "Not enough," Theron whispered. "It still breathes. And now, it's angry." Below the ruined gates of Olympus, the forgotten gathered. The Cyclopes grieved for their lost. The Dryads sang laments for the groves that would never regrow. The Lamia circled their fallen, hissing dirges of loss. The Hydra lay coiled in a circle of scorched marble, motionless. Its heads were silent. One had turned to stone. Another bled starlight. Yet it breathed. Eleni stepped forward, her voice like embers. "We fought. We broke Olympus. But Aesir still lingers beneath us all. Then we go after it again," Nema said. "No," Eleni replied. "Not like this." She turned to Theron. "To destroy a god's shadow, you must become something more than mortal. You must become the mirror of it." Theron walked alone into the remains of the throne hall. The marble was cracked. Statues lay shattered. The throne of Zeus had melted into slag. There, upon the altar, lay the mask of eternity, a divine relic cast into the mountain's roots, used only once in myth to crown the first king of men with divine favor. But Theron did not come to wear it. He came to break it. With one strike of the Paraxis blade, the mask shattered. Its pieces flew into the windand, where each landed. A seed of something new took root. A world unruled. Far below Olympus, in a chasm untouched by light or law, Aesir stirred. It no longer wore the shape of a serpent. It had become formless, a wound in reality, a swirling mass of hunger, memory, and dread. From within, voices echoed, not just the gods, not just the Hydra, but the first thoughts. Take, consume, forget. Theron could feel it calling again. In every moment of silence, in every shadow. And now, it had begun to seep into the world. The next days were filled with reckoning. The gods, humbled, wandered their own ruins. Some vanished. Apollo disappeared into the east, his light dimming. Hera returned to her ancient shrine and closed its gates. Ares wept tears of rage, but tears nonetheless. Only Athena approached Theron. "You've done what no mortal dared," she said. "I didn't come to conquer," he replied. "I came to end the lie." Athena placed her helm on the ground. "Then let us write a new truth." Theron, Nema, and the survivors of the battle led a march of return not to cities or thrones, but to the deep roots of the earth. The Hydra followed, silent, its heads healed with slow and painful time. In its gaze, something had changed. It no longer burned with rage. It watched with remembrance. Children along the path stared at it, not in terror, but with awe. The legends were shifting, and legends shaped the world. On the final night of the march, Theron stood atop a hill of wildflowers that had grown from the ashes of a battlefield. He raised the Paraxis blade once more, but not in war. He buried it into the earth. No more gods, he whispered. Only guardians. From that point forward, the blade would remain, glowing softly, an eternal flame. Not a weapon, a reminder. But beneath the world, in cracks no light could reach, Ezer pulsed. It had been wounded. It had lost its vessel. But it had seen what Theron had become. You carry me, it whispered. You carry me, still. And in dreams, the serpent coiled once more waiting. Chapter 13. The Forgotten Flame. Beneath the soil, where the Paraxis blade had been buried, something stirred. It was not easy. It was older. A flicker in the darker memory, untouched by gods or monsters. Theron could not sleep. Every time his eyes closed, visions returned. Not just of battle, but of a mountain burning, of the Hydra weeping, of a child crying in the rain, watching shadows rise behind his mother. He awoke to the scent of ash and the sound of Nima's flute. Still dreaming? She asked. Still remembering, he replied. They had camped in the Valley of Myr, a place whispered of, in myth, as a place where flames go to forget themselves. Trees here did not burn, they smoldered with cold fire, eternal yet silent. The Hydra lay in the distance, coiled among fallen stones like a sleeping temple. Theron gazed into the embers. Something's coming, he murmured. Something worse, worse than Isar, worse than forgetting. It's unbeing. I saw it, and I think it saw me. That night, the Paraxis flame returned. It rose out of the soil like a spirit reborn, no longer a sword, but a floating wisp, flickering gold, green, and deep red. It danced over the fields, lighting footsteps no one else could see. Theron followed. He didn't speak. He didn't call for Nima. Some part of him knew this was his alone. The flame led him to a place not marked on any map, a ruin swallowed by vines, at the foot of the first river of the world. Ancient walls bore carvings not of gods, but of flames with faces guardians, perhaps from before Olympus. And there, in the center of the ruin, stood a statue, a man with 9 heads. He approached slowly. Each head was unique, some human, some beast, one with no mouth at all. Its hands were raised to the sky, not in praise, but in warning. Beneath the feet of the statue, words had been carved in a language older than fire. The flame hovered over them and burned them clean, revealing the message in a voice only Theron could hear. Before gods, there was memory. Before memory, there was flame. And before flame, there was the first. Theron's breath caught. The flame drifted to his cheststand, entered him. Pain struck like lightning. Visions flashed. A world of fire, unshaped by gods. Creatures made of light and stone. A woman with eyes of smoke, whispering his name before he was born. A man with 9 heads, splitting into stars. He fell to his knees. You are not the last flame, the voice said. You are its reminder. When he awoke, Nima was there, kneeling beside him. What did you find? Theron looked to the sky. The stars had changed shape, I think. I remembered something the world forgot. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen across the land. Fire refused to burn in the homes of tyrants. Rivers reversed flow near shrines of old gods. Children dreamed of flames that spoke and serpents made of ink. The Hydra began to sing. No voice, no words, just a sound of vibration that echoed across hills and valleys, awakening old places. Elenai returned from the northern edge of the world, carrying a stone tablet found in the ice. It bore the mark of the first flame and drawings of beings not yet born. "There are more of us," she said. "More of the scattered, sleeping. Then we need to wake them," Theron replied. "And if they refuse," he looked toward the south, where the horizon was beginning to ripple like heat, except it wasn't heat. It was the serpent's shadow. "Then we burn anyway." Theron gathered a new band. Not of gods, not of soldiers, but of those who remembered. A boy who spoke to lightning. A girl with stone eyes who could see lies. A smith who forged fire into music. A blind hunter whose arrows always sang. They did not kneel to him. They followed the flame. Together, they became known as the Rekindled, and far below, Ezer whispered to the winds, "Burn all you like. Flames always die." But in the ruins of the old flame temples, across shattered mountains and serpent-haunted dreams, new sparks were rising. And this time, the world would not forget. Chapter 14. The Rekindled. They gathered in silence beneath the ashen tree. Its roots coiled like sleeping serpents, twisting deep into the world's crust. Its bark was blackened, its leaves, silver-each, one a memory, fluttering softly in the winds of time. It was said the tree had grown from a tear shed by the first flame, in an age when nothing yet had a name. Theron stood at its base, his hand outstretched. "Not an army," he said, "our remembrance." Before him, the first of the Rekindled kneeled not in submission, but in unity. They were different from the gods and different from mortals. Touched by flame, forged by memory. There was Kellis, the girl with stone eyes. Her pupils swirled like smoke, and truth cracked around her presence. No lie survived her gaze. There was Oren, the lightning child. Born during a storm that tore down a mountain, he had never spoken a word, but thunder answered when he screamed. There was Lasari, a smith from the southern wastes. She had forged a harp from cooled lava. Her music could bend fire and summon visions. And Voss, the blind hunter, whose arrows never missed. He claimed to have once killed a ghost with nothing but a whistle. Together with Nima and Elenai, they formed the flame-circled the first council in a world trying to remember itself. In a ruined amphitheater, carved from a fallen star, they made a vow. No gods, no thrones, no war for dominion, only one purpose, to rekindle what was forgotten. They named their order the Rekindled, not a nation, not a faith, a movement, and their first mission, to return to the 9 ruins, places of power from before the gods, now drowned in shadow and serpents. The first ruin lay beneath a scorched desert known as Unearth's Wrath, once a fertile land before Esor's early whispers poisoned its sky. As they crossed the wasteland, Khalees turned to Theron. "What if the Hydra follows us?" "Let it," he answered. For, though the Hydra no longer served Ezer, it had not returned to peace. It circled them from listening. Its heads often rose to the wind, as if tasting destiny itself. Theron suspected it remembered more than it let on. They reached the ruin at dusk. It was buried beneath shifting sands only. A single spire jutted out, etched in flame script. Lasari touched the pillar and began to hum. Fire danced at her fingertips, forming patterns. Then, the sand parted. The ground opened like a mouth, revealing a stairway spiraling downward into a chamber of obsidian. They descended in silence. Below, they found a forge ancient, cold, yet intact. A single ember floated in its heart. As Theron approached, the ember rose and spoke. You bear the wound of flame, but are you worthy of the first spark? Theron did not answer with words. He took a shard of his old blade, what was left of Paraxis sand, fed it to the ember. The forge roared to life. Light surged through the ruin. Walls glowed with forgotten constellations. Symbols ignited. A mural revealed itself, depicting 9 figures, heads bowed to a central flame. In the flame's shadow stood a figure that looked like Theron, eyes burning, but mouth sealed shut. Khalees gasped. It's you, or a version of you. No, Elenai said. It's what he could become, or what he was, long ago. Lazari pressed a hand to the wall. This place was not built by mortals, and it wasn't built to worship. It was built to remember. Remember what? Voss asked. Theron stared at the central flame. That we were never meant to forget ourselves. When they emerged from the ruin, the sands had shifted. The sky blazed with red lightning, and on the horizon, a serpent storm gathered, a massive cyclone of black winds and whispering heads. The storm bore the unmistakable echo of Iserbut, twisted now, fragmented, as if something within the god-beast had split. Orin raised his hand. Lightning bent toward him, then recoiled, as if afraid. It sees us, Elenai said. No, Theron whispered. It sees what we're becoming. That night, they did not sleep. They lit fires and told stories, not of war, but of the times before. Lasari spoke of the fire songs passed through generations of smiths. Kellis recited a lullaby her mother sang before the sky broke. Voss, surprisingly, laughed. He told of the first deer he missed, and how it led him into a cave where he met a ghost that whispered hunting secrets. Nima watched Theron from the edge of the flames. You're quieter than usual, she said. Every fire we light, Ezer sees it. Good, she said. Let it feel fear for once. As dawn broke, the sky shimmered with golden mist. A single flame floated above the ashen tree, brighter than any before. It drifted down into the hands of a child who had wandered into the camp from a distant village. The child smiled, and the flame rested in their palm. No burn, no pain, just warmth. Lasari stepped forward. A new, rekindled, she said. And not the last, Theron replied. For in every story they told, in every ember shared, the world began to remember itself. And Ezer, coiled in the edge of dreams, watched, not just with fear, but with hunger. Chapter 15. The Serpent Storm. The wind changed before the sky did, not just in scent or pressure, but in intention. It howled with voices, not of gods, not of mortals, but something in between. The old ones called them the Presum, echoes of beings too ancient to have names. And through these whispers, the serpent storm began to form. From the far southern edge of the world came a wall of black clouds, wide as a continent, taller than mountains. It wasn't a storm in the way mortals understood whether it was Esor's breath, cast across the sky like a net. Each bolt of lightning bore a different voice. Each gust of wind hissed a forgotten name. And at the center of it all, the Hydra stirred, no longer just watching, now called Theron, and the Rekindled stood atop the cliffs of Tyrak's spine, watching the black horizon boil toward them. This is not a natural storm, Elenai said, her sword vibrating in its sheath. It's Ezer, Nima replied. Or what's left of him. No, Kellis corrected. It's what he's becoming. The Hydra circled overhead. Its 9 heads snapped at the air, tongues flickering in distress. It wasn't attacking, it was resisting. Theron stepped forward. If the storm consumes it, The Hydra won't just be a servant, again it'll be a vessel. For what? Voss asked. For the end of flame. That night, the Rekindled gathered for a choice. Flee east into the forests of silence, where the storm could not follow, or confront the storm directly. No one chose to run. The Sari, her hands covered in soot, laid out a plan of fire. We don't fight the storm, we shape it. Fire is not destroyed by wind if it's alive with purpose. We take the ember threads from the first forge and plant them across the storm's path. Make it burn itself from the inside, Oren added with a nod. Elenai drew her sword and cut her palm. Then we anchor it with blood, fire and memory. They moved quickly. Across cliff and vale, they planted the ember threads, lines of molten fire spun from the first forge. Invisible to mortals, but blinding to Esor's eyes. The closer the storm came, the heavier the world felt. Time slowed. Colors dulled. Even language became brittle in their mouths, words cracking, forgotten mid. Khalees began to weep uncontrollably. She wasn't sad. The storm was sucking memory from her eyes. Theron steadied her. Hold on. Just a little longer. She looked up at him, trembling. It's eating who I am. Then, the storm arrived. It hit the cliffs like a living wall. Thunder screamed. Lightning fell sideways. The sky shattered into 9 pieces, each bearing a reflection of a different Hydra head. From the heart of the chaos, a voice emerged on a sea. Something beneath Is, something older. I was the silence before the flame, it hissed. You are sparks that should have died. Let me snuff you clean. Theron stood firm. We are the memory that refuses to be erased. And the Hydra screamed. All 9 heads twisted in agony as the storm sought to reclaim it. Esor's shadow coiled through the beast, wrapping around its spine, whispering old commands. Theron leaped forward, calling on the ember threads. They responded not as fire, but as song. Lazari played her harp. Oren raised his hand. Lightning bent. Voss, blind, aimed at the storm's heart and let fly. His arrow pierced a rift in the clouds, splitting them like cloth. Through that tear, light shone not sun, but memory. From the breach came visions, the first flame singing the world into form. The Hydra as a protector of the first forest. Esor, once a guardian, before his hunger twisted him. Khalees cried out. It wasn't always evil. He was once light. Theron reached the Hydra. 9 heads hissed, unsure. He climbed its neck, standing between them. Do you remember what you were before the chains? For a moment, nothing. Then the central head lowered, eyes wide with grief. The storm howled, and the Hydra turned on it. In a single, apocalyptic motion, the beast launched itself into the sky, tearing through the clouds. Jaws open. It devoured the lightning. Head by head, it bit through the storm, eating its way through the shadow. The storm shrieked, trying to flee. But the ember threads burned bright, igniting within the wind. Lycera's harp snapped from the power. Oren collapsed, his veins glowing white. Voss dropped his final arrow, and Theron, still on the Hydra's back, plunged what remained of the Paraxis shard into the serpent's heart. Not to kill it, but to anchor it. And then, silence. Not the dead kind, the first kind, the kind from before creation. The Hydra landed, barely breathing. Theron fell from its neck, unconscious. The storm was gone. But something had changed. In the distance, a door of flame opened in the sky, just a crack. Something watched from the other side, and whispered, they remember. The flame lives. Now, we move. Chapter 16. The Door of Flame. It stood in the sky like a wound, the door of flame, wide enough to swallow stars, narrow enough to be missed by those who no longer dreamed. No hinges, no frame, just light pure and knowing leaking into the world. And something behind it, watching, waiting. Theron awoke in a field of ashes. The Hydra lay coiled nearby, sleeping deeply, its 9 heads twitching with dreams. Nema knelt beside him, pressing a cool cloth to his forehead. "You were gone for 3 days," she whispered. "I was somewhere else," he murmured. "Not dead. Not here." He sat up, slowly. "The door," he said. Nema looked to the sky. It hadn't moved. "It opened the moment you struck Esor's heart." "Not Esor," he corrected. "What was behind Esor?" "Ellen, I returned from scouting with grave news. The door is pulling at the land. Old temples are rising from the earth. Rivers are reversing again. The stars are bending. The world's rewriting itself," Kellis added, as if responding to a memory long buried. Lizery, her hands glowing faintly from her broken harp, spoke last. "And those who shouldn't remember are starting to call across the world." Strange awakenings occurred. Priests in temples of forgotten gods began screaming names they had never learned. Children drew pictures of flames with eyes. Animals refused to walk near mirrors or water. In the west, the dead walked upright, not to attack, but to watch the sky. And from the cracks in reality came the whispers. "The flame returns. The serpent sleeps. The first awakens." Theron and the Rekindled made their way to the Skydon's spire, the tallest mountain left in the known world. Legend said it touched not the heavens, but the before sky, the space that existed before time, where thought and flame were one. It was there, they believed, the door could be reached. The climb took 5 days. Storms tried to stop them, not natural, but echoes of Ezor's last breath, still clinging to the air. At the summit, they found a circle of stones, ancient and smooth, not carved by hands, but by intention. In the center, a pedestal of light, and on it the flame's eye. It wasn't a real eye. It looked like a shard of mirror, suspended in fire. But when each member of the Rekindled looked into it, they saw something different. Nema saw her mother, alive, weaving light from her voice. Kellis saw the moment she forgot her sister's face, weeping alone in the snow. Elenai saw herself breaking her sword in the first war, choosing mercy over victory. Theron saw nothing. Only a blank reflection. Until he blinked, and saw himself holding the Hydra's leash. The eye spoke, not aloud, but in memory. "You have resisted the forgetting. You have rekindled the flame, but you are not yet whole. The first sleeps still, and waits to be found." Theron stepped forward. Who is the first? Not a god, not a beast. The first is what came before choice, before fire and shadow. Esor feared it. Esor was it, once, a part broken away. The door of flame shimmered above the mountain. It pulsed with time, memories bleeding from its edges, visions of things long erased. A war of flame-born giants in a skyless world. A serpent born from sound. A man with 9 heads, not monstrous, but wise. Theron clenched his fists. "Then we go through." But Lysari touched his shoulder. "What if it's a trap? Then we burn our way out." They prepared for crossing. Lysari reforged her harp from shards of song. Kellis carved names of the dead into her spear. Voss, now blind in both eyes, whispered to the wind, teaching it to sing. And the Hydra bowed, all 9 heads, and opened its mouth. Inside, a second flame burned. Theron stepped in. The door did not open for them. They opened it. The rekindled walked through together one by one into light, into memory, into something more than the world. Behind them, the door sealed, and far below, in the lands of men, the stars began to fall, one by one, each whispering a name. Chapter 17, The Memory Before Flame. There is no word in mortal tongues for what came before flame, no shape, no time, only intent, drifting like mist in an endless sea of unhappened moments. And into that sea, the rekindled stepped. They did not walk, they became. Theron felt his bones dissolve into starlight. His voice melted into thought. Each of the rekindled found themselves unmade and remembered at once. Kellis became the echo of a promise never broken. Lissari, a lullaby sung by a mother who never had a child. Nima turned into color, just color with no shape to hold her grief. Voss saw through time, not with eyes, but with regret. Only the Hydra remained whole, not because it resisted, but because it already belonged to this place. Here, memory wasn't remembered, it was real. A vast landscape of unlit stars, frozen wars, and serpents coiled into music. Great spires of light spun across the sky, each holding a moment that could have been. Theron moved through it, drawn toward one flame brighter than the rest, a central fire, surrounded by 9 chains of silver, and beneath it, something vast slept, a shape made of both man and beast. The first. It's not alive, Kellis said beside him, her voice now a thread of thought. Not dead either, Lissari added. It's waiting. Voss touched one of the silver chains. He flinched. These aren't bindings. They're memories. They hold it here. Elenai stepped forward. Then how do we wake it? Theron closed his eyes and remembered the song. Not a melody, not notes. A flame song, older than breath, sung not with sound, but truth. He did not know the words, but he had lived them. Every sacrifice, every battle, every friend lost and flame rekindled. He sang with his memory, and the chains began to dissolve. The first stirred. It opened, one eye black, as before time and stared at Theron, and Theron saw himself reflected, not as he was, but as he could have been, king of fire, breaker of shadow, destroyer of the door. Then the first spoke, without speaking. Why have you come? To remember, Theron answered. To bind or to burn, to choose. The first rose slowly, like a mountain waking. It was neither man nor beast, but possibility made flesh. Around it spun remnants of broken worlds, each one a failed attempt at creation, each one abandoned, forgotten. Theron felt his knees buckle, but the Hydra stood firm. It stepped between Theron and the first. The two ancient beings stared at each other. Recognition passed silently, and the first smiled. You remembered your name, it whispered, and the Hydra bowed. Theron asked, what are you? The first turned, and its voice was not cruel, nor kind, it simply was. I am the root of all fire. The first thought, the memory before memory. Are you a god? No. Gods were made to explain me. Are you Ezer? Ezer was a shadow I cast when I forgot myself. And now I remember. The flames around them shifted. The rekindled were remade, their bodies reformed by truth, not flesh. Kellis's spear now burned with her sister's laughter. Lissari's harp strings sang with the voices of unborn generations. Voss's blindness became sight through time. Elenai's blade pulsed with mercy and rage bout. Theron held no weapon, only a single ember, the last shard of the door of flame. What do we do with it? He asked. Close it, Nima offered. Or open it wider, Elenai said. The first stepped back. "This is not my choice. It never was. Flame was given to mortals to teach them one thing." "What?" Theron asked. The first leaned close. "That memory is stronger than shadow." A great wind rose. The rekindled stood in a circle, flame passing between their hands. Not just fires. They had the choice now. Seal the door of flame forever, burying the first and all that came before, or open it fully, and let the world remember everything it had lost. Nema looked at Theron. "Are we ready for what's behind it?" Theron stared into the ember, and chose. The ember burned. The door split. Not in destruction, but in revelation, and from within came a flood of memory, so vast it split mountains, healed old scars, and turned forgotten names into songs again. The first did not step through, but it whispered. Then it begins again, and faded. The rekindled were alone, but the world was changed. Rivers glowed with light. Trees whispered names. The sky itself burned with a slow, steady fire. And far away, in the hearts of sleeping cities, people woke from dreams they'd never had, weeping without knowing why. They remembered something about a flame, and a Hydra who was never truly a monster. Chapter 18, The Flameborn Age. The world awoke to flame, not fire, but memory, not destruction, but clarity. The day the door of flame opened fully, the sky didn't fall. It burned gently like dawn that never ends. And all across the lands, the old names returned. Rivers reclaimed their true courses. Mountains shed their false shapes. Cities, long built on lies, crumbled into ash, not ruined, but released. And in their place, the Flameborn rose. They were not a race. They were not chosen. They were any who remembered. The beggar who spoke with the voice of the first prophet. The child who touched stone and wept, recalling 1,000 past lives. The soldier who laid down his blade because he remembered the scream of the one he once killed centuries ago. To be Flameborn was to carry the weight and the light of what was forgotten, and the world bent around them, not in fear, but recognition. The rekindled did not rule. They wandered. Theron and Nema walked across the ashen plains where silence once reigned, and now the wind sang. Kellis rode north, where the gods had abandoned the land to show them they were never needed. Lissari built a temple not of stone, but of song, which could only be entered by remembering your truest name. Elenai vanished for a time. Some say she entered the sea to find the memories even the waves had forgotten. And the Hydra, it slept beneath the worldroot tree, deep in the center of all things, its coils wrapped not in menace, but in watchfulness. Children who approached it did not fear. They laid offerings, drawings, poems, little candles made from their parents' stories. And in return, the Hydra gave them dreams. The door of flame no longer stood in the sky. It was everywhere. In mirrors, in firelight, in the last breath of the dying, in the first cry of the newborn. It whispered the truth to those who dared listen. The past is not behind you. It is within you. Light it well. But not all were soothed. In the veiled south, old kings who had ruled through forgetting saw their dominions unravel. Their histories crafted by blood and ink were undone by a single memory spoken aloud. Some tried to burn others tried to seal the door once more. But you cannot seal what is within. The second flame war began, not with blades, but with memory songs clashing across the skies. Theron stood at the heart of the war, unarmed, surrounded. The enemy general, a man with no name, snarled. "You've turned the world into chaos," Theron replied. "No. I turned it into truth." The Hydra appeared behind him, silent and burning, with gentle flame. And every soldier who looked upon it remembered something. A kindness long buried. A lie they once told. A dream they gave up. The army broke, not in death, but in awakening. Years passed. Generations came and went. The story of the Rekindled spread, sometimes as myth, sometimes as prayer. Statues were built of light and sound. Temples were erected in the shapes of forgotten letters. The world learned to hold fire not as weapon, but as witness. And in the high mountains of the west, under skies now full of remembering stars, a small school was founded, the Ember-born Archive, where children learned to wield memory like magic, where truth was taught not as law but as flame. Theron visited once. Older now, tired, he saw a young girl drawing the Hydra with 9 smiling heads. He asked her, "Why do you think it smiles?" She shrugged, grinning. "Because it's proud." "Of what?" She looked at him, curiously. "Of you." That night, Theron stood at the edge of the world, gazing into a sky filled with doors. He held the last ember, not to use it, only to remember. And far beneath the roots of the world tree, the Hydra stirred, its dream shifting into new shapes. Wings made of time, teeth made of stories, a heart that beat not for destruction, but truth. It opened one eye, and whispered, "It is not the end." Chapter 19. The Serpent's Last Dream. Beneath the worldroot tree, deeper than time, and older than light, the Hydra dreamed. But this was no ordinary sleep. This was the last dream that decides what shape the future will take. And in that space, beyond all things, the Hydra wandered. Each of its 9 heads dreamed a different world. One dreamed of peace, a land where no flame was needed, because nothing was ever broken. One dreamed of war, a world of fire and glory, where memory was wielded like a sword. One dreamed of forgetting, where the past was finally allowed to rest. One dreamed of children who never cried. One dreamed of stars that told the truth. One dreamed of silence. One dreamed of music. One dreamed of a garden. And the ninth head dreamed of Theron. Not as he was, but as he would have been, had none of this ever happened. In that dream, Theron was a blacksmith in a quiet village. He had no sword, no fame, no burden, just a forge, a wife, 2 sons. He died an old man, content, and the Hydra wept. Not in sorrow, not in envy, in reverence, because even in a forgotten life, there was beauty. But dreams are not without danger. Deep within the last dream, something stirred, a shape not born of flame or memory, a hollow thing, the final remnant of Essor's will stripped of form, but still hungry. It had no name, it had no face, only purpose, to end the dream before it could choose. It whispered into the heads of the Hydra, "You are tired. Let go. The world does not need you anymore. Close your eyes, forever." And one by one, the heads began to dim. On the surface, under the boughs of the worldroot, the sky grew pale. The stars trembled. People stopped singing. The door flickered. In the Ember-born Archive, children cried without knowing why. Theron, now older than kings, felt it. He dropped his staff, staggered, and whispered, "It's dreaming, it's death." Nima appeared beside him, her blade still glowing from a memory, war fought years ago. "Then let's go in." They gathered again one last time. Khalees, scarred but smiling. Lissari, her hair woven with light. Voss, blind but all-seeing. Elenai returned from the deep sea, carrying voices that no longer had bodies. Nima, the last soldier of the first flame, and Theron, bearer of the ember, They stood at the mouth of the dream, and walked in. Inside, they found the Hydra, not as a beast but as a child, curled in fear. The 9 heads were now one, sobbing softly. "I tried to dream the right future," it said, "but they're all wrong. All of them." Theron stepped forward. "There's no right future. Then what do I choose? The one where you wake up?" The hollow voice howled. It descended, a storm of black wind and empty eyes. It roared. "Flame is not truth. Memory is not power. You are only fire, and fire must die." But the Rekindled stood together. Each placed a hand on the Hydra, and they remembered. They remembered the mountains that moved when they spoke their true names, the stars that wept for mortals who dared to sing, the children who saw monsters and gave them flowers, the gods who fell not by blade but by understanding. The first lie ever told, then the first truth that burned it away. And the Hydra remembered too. It opened its 9 eyes and said, "You are not real." The hollow voice screamed, but it could not survive in a world where nothing was forgotten. It burned not with fire, but with memory. Its shape was devoured by every story it had tried to erase. And it was gone. The dream shattered, but not in ruin. In rebirth, the Hydra stood tall once more. Its 9 heads now harmonized, no longer divided, and the last dream became the first dawn. The Rekindled stepped out of the dream. The sky flared with color. The door of flame pulsed not with danger, but invitation. And across the world, people woke, knowing one final truth. The Hydra is no longer dreaming. Now, we must. And as Theron stood beneath the tree, the last ember in his hand, he knew there was still one more chapter. Chapter 20, The Flame That Remains. The world did not end. It breathed. After centuries of silence, of myths twisted and burned, of memories caged by fear, the world finally exhaled. The door of flame was no longer a gate. It was a mirror. And every living soul began to see themselves clearly for the first time. Theron, once the boy with no past and too many futures, stood beneath the worldroot tree, holding the last ember. It pulsed softly, no longer in warning, but in peace. Nema approached him, her blade long since buried. "It's done," she said. "The Hydra dreams no more." He turned, smiling faintly. "Then we must." The 9 heads of the Hydra encircled the tree's roots, eyes closed, not in sleep, but listening. Children now played in the valley, without fear. They built small shrines of wood and stone, not to gods, but to memories. A boy carved the face of his grandmother, long dead. A girl sang the lullaby her people had forgotten 4 generations ago. Each act small, tender-fed the world's new fire. Lysera's temple of song became a sanctuary for the broken. There, silence was not feared, but welcomed. And even the most wounded learned to speak again, not with words, but truth. Kellis traveled the dying edges of the world, where ice met flame and night never ended. Wherever he walked, old beasts remembered their names and turned away from violence. Elenai wrote books in no known language. When read aloud, the earth hummed in agreement. Voss, now a blind seer, guided those who could no longer remember how to dream. And Nema, she became the guardian of the door, not to bar it, but to welcome those ready to step through it. And Theron, he walked to the center of the world, alone. There, beneath the stars, now bright with truth, he spoke one final time to the ember. "You were never fire. You were memory. You were light. You were mine." And he placed it in the soil. It did not extinguish. It rooted, and from it, a new tree grew. This tree bore no leaves. It bloomed stories. Each petal whispered a different voice. Each branch curved like an old symbol runes, not of magic, but of truth once lived. They called it the flame that remains. Not a weapon, not a tool, a reminder. That light must not only shine, but remember. Generations passed. The rekindled faded into legend. The Hydra slept beneath the roots, vast and dreaming, with the world, not of it. Some say it will wake again when the last lie is told. Others say it already has. And in quiet corners of the earth, when the wind is just right, people still hear the chant of the old world. A prayer, a promise, a prophecy. From fire we rise. Through memory we burn. In truth we remain. We are and we forget nothing. The end.